FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 9/23/19. Happy birthday to my son, wherever he may be. He's in Europe now, but always remember this day. So shout out to Brandon. Well, hey, a lot of shout outs. Things are speeding up. Change is happening quickly. What's going on with the repo market, the oil market, all of these markets, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Well, what are they supposed to do? What do you think they're supposed to do? Why don't you email us, kl@kerrylutz.com, for your opinion, what's going on with these markets? Well, Peak Prosperities, Chris Martenson is with us now. And Chris, as always, welcome back. So you think things are speeding up, huh?
Yeah, Kerry, I do. And happy birthday to Brandon there. Yeah, this is a sort of the theme I've been running with in the last couple of pieces that I've written, is that it's not just the changes that get you, but it's the change in the changes. And we're starting to see those really accelerate. It's starting to unnerve people. Many people don't understand what's happening, so they feel a little bit more scared. I get it. You know, fear of the unknown is actually usually larger than once you can face something. But people have been unable to face what's actually happening. And we can look at this in a lot of dimensions. You know, we've got massive bird and insect die-offs, the weird, stuff happening in the Bering Sea, or we can look at, how that's expressed in the millions of people that came out to talk about climate change. They're asking for things that if they actually got them, I think they'd be disappointed in what would actually happen next. But what do you do about these things? The repo market just shredded and broke itself apart. It wasn't supposed to do that. Banks have $1.3 trillion in excess reserves they could have easily used, but they chose not to. That tells you that something's not right under all of the, everything's okay, market rescues we're seeing. Watching the whole WeWork fiasco, begin to unfold. It's everything, right? It's all that stuff. Plus, we just found out that you can use a little bit of knowledge and some explosives and some drones, and you can attack any of the world's oil infrastructure, which is kind of an unsettling idea. Mm-hmm. So all of that, but it didn't, that didn't really impact the oil price a lot. Everything's just sort of calm and collected. And we've talked about this before. My view is that the markets are now government operated utilities. Yeah. Utilities are supposed to send out a nice, even sort of flow of some sort of product, whether it's electricity, natural gas. In this case, it's steady prices to keep everybody calm and not paying attention. But I tell you what, underneath, the pace of change is picking up.
Yeah, you feel it. Although when you're younger, like in your 30s or 40s, you really feel time zipping by amazingly. And then when you get older, time is going just as fast, but it seems to be slower. I'm not quite sure what that's about, but I do know that it's noticeable. And, time is, I don't want to get into Einstein and Newton here, but it really is relative to where you're at in your life and where you've been and where you're going,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I do get the sense that, stuff is speeding up and hey, guess what? When your big narratives begin to shred, right? And so we still got some big ones on the table that we haven't really fully faced yet as a civilization across the whole globe. The first is that you can't grow infinitely on a finite planet. And we've hit the edges of that story, but zero recognition of that in the economist space, financial space, in the news cycle, everything's just geared for this idea that we need growth, we need more growth, we got to get back to growth, we need rapid growth. The Fed's now responsible for growing everything from stock prices to bond prices to employment, the GDP, they're going to proactively cut because we need more growth. And that whole story is it's broke, and people are starting to figure that out. And here's my prediction. That Schopenhauer says all truth passes through 3 stages, and the third stage is it becomes self-evident. That thing I just told you, that growth is an impossibility, is being fought tooth and nail right now. That's the second stage of this. Mm-hmm. But the third stage is it becomes self-evident. And when it does, people suddenly realize that, a quadrillion of debt and unmet liabilities will never be paid back. They suddenly realize that you can't count on paying a company, buying its stock at a PE of 100, because we don't have 100 years for it to turn around and deliver your dollar back to you. When these things sort of become self-evident, you're going to see the most profound rush back towards real assets. People understand what real value is again, and they understand, it's real stuff. It becomes tangible. And that story is only, they're fighting it tooth and nail out there, but it's coming. And I've been advising people that you really got to get out in front of that story. The simplest hard assets, have some gold and silver, but that's not the be all end all. Make sure you've invested in your homestead. Make sure you've invested in the soil around your home. All sorts of things you can do to actually increase tangible value that are clearly and easily articulable, right? You can say, see that soil? It's 8 inches deep, was 6 inches last year. I can point to it. I can tell you why that's important. I can't tell you how WeWork is, putting their we community into transforming the we space. I don't know any of that stuff.
We work there is a typical scam millennial business. It's
millennial. I like it.
It's like the shirt company. You see these millennial companies. Some of them have gone on and done quite well, but they come up with a different way to deliver what people have been buying their whole lives in a more expensive way, but a more convenient way. Like you have a shirt. I don't know about you, we're close in age. I don't wear my shirts tucked in anymore. So of course, a millennial company had to come up with a shirt company that specializes in people that don't tuck their shirts in, right? And they don't make the shirt any better. They might style the tails so they don't quite hang down as much, but everybody's been doing this. But they took the name. It's just not real, and the value that you get from it is not real either. It's strictly a perceived value situation where you're not really getting anything more for your money. Actually, you're getting less.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
a good example.
Yeah. So in this most recent piece, I also noted that, the 1720s in the UK, England, then they had the South Sea bubble, right? Isaac Newton lost a ton of money. I know that one. Yes. I've written about bubbles. All these funny companies that's propped up, that bubble territory. There are all these companies sort of emerged, and one of them advertised itself as an undertaking, but nobody to know what it is. Right. That's it. And they raised thousands of pounds.
That was a bubble company. Those were called bubble companies. That was tons of money
at the time, right?
Yes.
So I contrasted that with Lyft. Lyft in their IPO prospectus, just March of this year, 2019, they said, we're not profitable now. We're not clear that we ever will be either.
Hey, they disclosed it. Their only requirement, Chris, is to disclose the true state of the company. And they couldn't have been any more honest. You should be grateful to them.
I know, but their stock price went up 100% over the IPO price, at the initial offering on that first day.
Yeah,
I know it's wobbled down some since, but it's still $13 billion. That's what this company's valued at.
It's an honesty premium. It's like if you tell everybody in the world you're worthless, they're so happy that you were so honest with them that they reward you and give you a premium over and above your imaginary value.
Yeah.
Because they're so used to being lied to, right? Oh, well, these guys must be good. They're going to succeed because they're honest, even though, right? I mean, it kind of writes itself, doesn't it?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Otis Gold Corp is a gold development and exploration company with quality projects in the pro-mining state of Idaho. Otis's flagship Kilgore project has a resource of 961,000 gold ounces, and its recently published preliminary economic assessment demonstrated an impressive post-tax IRR of 53% at $1,500 gold. In addition to the significant expansion potential at Kilgore, Otis is exploring its highly prospective Oakley project. This Carlin-type gold deposit already has an inferred resource, and previous near-surface drilling intersected 123 meters of 0.69 grams per ton gold. Otis Gold Corp trades in New York under the ticker OGLDF and in Toronto under the ticker OOO. That's triple O. To learn more, go to otisgold.com. That's otisgold.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Yeah, it does. It does not. Listen, $13 billion to own a company that's not profitable, can't be profitable, isn't sure how it's going to be profitable. But every time it earns more revenue, it loses more money. So $13 billion for that. Or if I gave you the choice, like right now on the spot, you could either own that or you could own, I'll make a number up. I'll go $10,000 an acre so I can do the math. 130,000 acre ranch with minerals and water and stuff in the West. Which would you rather have right now? And that's the story that's going to be breaking is people are going to wake up one day and they're going to go, geez, I don't want that $13 billion company that's worth nothing. I'd rather have that land over there. Right. And so that's, I think, what's the next big stage of this story is going to be all about.
Land, huh?
Yeah. Hard assets. Land, water, productive assets. It could be productive real estate too. But let's go tangible, make it easy. If I buy 130,000 acres of forest and that forest is going to grow every year and it puts on about 6% new biomass every year, that's like a coupon paying 6%, and it'll do it in perpetuity. What's that worth today? When people are buying 100-year Austrian bonds at a negative rate of interest, I don't know. It's got to be worth something.
It's got to be worth something, but not what you're paying. So everything is stood on its head. This concept of negative interest rates, the system cannot function on negative interest rates. It was never designed to reward debtors for their profligacy. And I mean, that's what has evolved over the years. And it's one thing to see your real rate of interest turn to zero or negative, but your stated rate of interest cannot be negative and have the system function. It just has no way of doing it.
Right. Listen, we have a fractional reserve banking system, and it does not operate with negative interest rates. It works on a positively sloping yield curve. The idea is that a financial institution, call it a bank, is going to, borrow at 2%. It's going to lend at 5%. It's going to make its VIG on the 3 that's in between those two numbers, right? So that's how it works. So now let's just wander with me for a second, Carrie. Let's go over to this other place. So now the bank is going to pay me minus 2%, I guess, in this brave new world, but are they going to lend it minus 1%? Because if they do that, money is now being destroyed in the system, right? I put my $1,000 in, they give me 998 back, but then they loan that 1,000 out and they get 999 back. I don't understand, right? Yeah. So the fractional reserve banking system was designed to create ever increasing amounts of money in the system. You put that into negative territory and it destroys money over time. So how do you correct that? Well, then you got to go into MMT. You got to just print and throw it out there, right? And that distorts everything in this, just distorts everything. So basically, the central banks are taking 5,000 years of accumulated trial and error learnings about capitalism, money, price of money, and said, you know what? We got some people from MIT and Princeton. They came out with some really tasty PhDs. Yeah. We think we have a better idea. Hang with us, everybody, as we conduct an experiment on 7.8 billion humans. I know it's never been tried before, but there must be a reason. People weren't as smart as we are today.
They didn't have the internet. The reason. We didn't have the internet. So, of course, it was never tried, right?
Yeah. 5,000 years of history on this. And they're like, no, we can do that. We can do better. And it's all instead of just saying, wow, business cycles happen. We can't prevent downturns from happening. We have to have a little humility to say we can't control everything. And sometimes bad ideas happen, like Lyft. It's a bad idea, right? Yeah. If it was a good idea, it'd be making money, right? Good ideas are profitable.
I will take issue. It's a great idea for you and me, the consumer. It's not necessarily a great idea for the company to make money off of it because, like, for instance, right before the hurricane, I came into West Palm Beach Airport and the Lyft price was $22. I couldn't get a Lyft because they'd all fled, and the same with Uber. And Uber is in the same boat as Lyft. There's no way they're ever going to make money. So I couldn't get an Uber either. I wound up taking a taxi for $55 with the tip and, saying I'm getting ripped off here. So the value to the consumer is definitely there. But the value to the company, the ability to make a profit from this, unless they all switch to Teslas overnight. So there's no gasoline expense and it's only EVs and maybe self-driving without the driver, then they'll make money. But until that happens,
and the cars were free.
Yeah,
you didn't have to capitalize them. All that. No, I get it. Hey, Gary, I'm totally down with this. I use Uber and Lyft all the time and I thank every time I get in and close the door, I'm like, thank you, shareholders and other investors, for subsidizing my ride. I like the $30 off I'm getting on this. But let me be clear: if shareholders and equity investors and debt investors wanted to subsidize a company that would offer me free massages, and all I had to do was call somebody, I'd get a free massage in my home every day, I'd take advantage of that too. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's a good business idea, but as a consumer, I'd love it. Yeah, I love free stuff.
Until it goes broke. Yeah, you have to make a profit eventually. At least that's what they taught us in school. And they taught us that in school, that if a company, they can lose money for years and years, but eventually if they don't make a profit, they'll be gone. And what I've come to realize is a company only needs to appear to make a profit. They don't have to make a profit. They just have to look like they are. And if they can fake it long enough, the market will reward them richly. Like these automakers, none of them in the world, with perhaps the exception of Toyota, are profitable. None of them have been profitable because most of their sales, and I put that in quotes, come from leasing, and leasing, the cars they get back are worth way less than they pretend they're going to be. And as a result, they've got billions and billions of dollars of unrecorded liabilities that literally wipe out their most, if not all, of their net worth. All of them in the world are like this, right? Mercedes-Benz, because cars have gone down in quality, while cars have gone up in initial quality, meaning until the warranty is over. Once the warranty is over, cars rapidly become worthless. And no auto company that I can find has ever properly accounted for this. And then deteriorating credit quality, put that on top. But they appear to be making money, and all the market cares about is the appearance.
Yeah, during the upswing of a credit cycle, during the downswing of a credit cycle, all gets exposed, right? And so that's what the central banks did that was different. You know, we had internet bubble, that was experiment in money printing number one. Then we had the housing bubble. That's what it's called. But really, each of them were just slightly larger iterations of this idea of, let's just throw money and credit into the market and maybe we can fix these things, right? So the Federal Reserve and other central banks create the problem, then they ride to the rescue and fix the problem. It's really exciting on both sides of that story. But what's being left out of this, and I fault the media heavily for this, is nobody's looking at it saying, wait a minute, aren't you like the arsonist who works for the fire department? I don't get it.
Or there was that movie, American Hustle. And when the guy started out, he was in the window replacement business. Yeah. And what he used to do was go out with a slingshot with a bunch of nuts and break windows, like dozens of them every night. And then in the morning, he'd get the call to fix the windows. And he was creating his own demand. It was really kind of brilliant when you think about it.
Yeah. So that's sort of the world we're in. And I think the larger thing people need to understand, and I try to articulate this in the crash course, is that this isn't really a bubble that started with the 0% rates that got dialed in around 2009. And this isn't even an echo bubble off of the one from 2001. You have to rewind all the way back to August 15th, 1971. We went off the gold standard. Politicians loved it. Bankers loved it. Economists suddenly loved it because what they could do was seemingly forever kick the can down the road with this new model of just saying, well, gosh, we have these problems in the credit markets, but we'll just make more credit. Yeah, we'll make so much credit, it'll swamp the effects of the bad stuff from before. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point now that the United States at the federal level alone has unfunded liabilities. That includes debt plus IOUs that aren't met, and the liabilities and entitlement programs, of around 200 to 250 trillion, depending on who's doing the counting. That's on a net present value basis. Means you'd have to have 200 trillion in the bank today, actually earning interest, not negative interest, earning a rate of interest to cover the shortfall. The United States is insolvent. Bankruptcy is a legal term that follows insolvency at some point, potentially. But it just simply means those promises can't be kept. And so they won't be kept. And we're already seeing that play out at the municipal level. If you haven't seen the poop-stained streets of San Francisco or the giant mile after mile tent encampments in downtown LA, or what's going on in Cook County, Illinois, with Chicago just jacking up taxes on the last few people who couldn't figure out how to flee because their pension programs are broken.
Oh,
this is happening everywhere already, and I think that we're going to see the change in the changes, and we're going to see the pace of this accelerate. But there comes that moment, Kerry, when it becomes self-evident. People go, "Oh my God, none of this junk ever gets repaid. No. You can't print your way out of this." And then what do they do?
And Martin Armstrong, he's been writing a book for years and years, the history of government sovereign debt defaults of the world. And he went back to, I think, like around Germany, around the time of the Gutenberg Bible, because that printing press set off a whole massive, increase in knowledge and economy. And all of these, back then there wasn't sovereign debt. There was more like debt to the municipality, the states or the provinces where people lived. The government didn't issue debt per se in the 1300s, but he's traced it, and not one country has ever paid off their debt. Maybe Russia will be the first, but we'll see how long they stick with it, because it's just not a popular thing to do. Well, people might have to suffer, and sacrifices might have to be made in order to keep the country solvent. It's just not a recipe for political success.
Well, it's not. And the theme here is that in a balanced accounting way, you would understand as an individual, you understand this intimately because it applies to you. As a small business, it applies. That if you live beyond your means for a period of time, you have to live below your means for a little bit of time, right? It's just how it works, right? So
we've all done
if I decide to put $50,000 of world traveling on my credit card, I'm living above my means for that moment. But then later, I got to pay it back, right? Somehow at the national level, we're supposed to believe that accounting doesn't matter anymore, that we can all live beyond our means forever. And it's not a big deal. We just keep pulling consumption forward from the future, and we'll just do that forever, right? Yeah. And that just doesn't work. And so what I'm suggesting here, and I might be wrong, but I'm not confused, is that there will be a time of living below our means. Austerity is the political enforcement of that. People hate it. Politicians correspondingly hate it, so it doesn't tend to happen. Or what happens is they push until it breaks, and then it's really nobody's fault, but then you have your austerity enforced by outside forces kind of a thing, right? And that's, it's Venezuela, it's all sorts of things, but that's already happening. It's already happening in the places that are way too extended, and we have rotting infrastructure and people who are homeless and all. It's already happening. And so that's my main point to people is like, just take your cues from that. Not what the Dow is, the Dow gets rescued probably 5 times a day now. These mysterious V bottoms that come out of nowhere to get it back to green. Don't take your cues from that. That's a signaling device used by the powers that be to tell you that everything's okay. Instead, use your eyeballs and just look at if you see any crumbling infrastructure, if you notice there's any areas where a lack of investment and deferred maintenance has maybe happened on the country, notice how where the stress lines are in a culture. Like, you can read the bid statistics, right? The median household has $400 to their name or something, for an emergency. That means 50% of households are below that number, right? Mm-hmm. And that's just all a measure that there just isn't. There's no savings in this story anymore,
exactly.
Right? And that's what the central banks have done. They've ruined savers.
They destroyed it.
Said,
it killed
any money you store up now has a negative value. We're going to take it away.
Agreed.
That's awful.
It's terrible. It's a sign of more things to come. Chris, we always appreciate you coming on. So peakprosperity.com. Questions, comments, what you think about what Chris had to say, especially about coming to the end of the rainbow. Just email us, kl@kerrylutz.com, Twitter feed @KerryLutz, Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Make sure you go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for our free newsletter. I got one going out talking about Carl Icahn fleeing New York. He's come to Florida to join me. Hey, we didn't even get into the states, Chris, but that's another disaster that's just waiting to occur. And you did brush upon pensions briefly, but it's happening now right before our very eyes. Tax refugees fleeing to Florida, to Texas, even to Washington State, if you can believe it, and to Tennessee, all states with no income taxes. Not fleeing to Alaska. They're not fleeing to South Dakota. Who wants to live there? I know a lot of you do think it's a great place, but most people don't want to live in South Dakota. They don't like the winters, and hey, it's remote, everything else. But this is a sign of things to come, and we're barely seeing the beginning of it, but it's going to cavalcade and escalate and turn into much more. Chris, as always, thank you, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.